What's up, Matt Underwood? How you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
In the
Matt,
building.
welcome to the show for the first time.
Thanks
We
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
It's great being here.
Do you think Teoscar Hernandez is one of the top 5 clutch hitters of the
What
last
did you think of that
23
list?
years?
Who was missing?
I love lists, and I like the way you guys have the show formatted because
Yeah,
I just
thank
felt
you.
like literally I walked downstairs to my buddy's basement,
Right.
and it was just on.
That's what we want to do. I mean,
That's literally
what
our,
we're going
our
for, really.
mission statement.
Yeah, there's no varnish, or we're not being
No,
fair.
no,
We're not. Nobody's feelings are afraid of getting hurt.
No,
No,
definitely
no,
not.
we trample
You say
everyone.
something dumb, you're going to get crushed.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
it
right.
should be.
You
I like
can't
it.
be sensitive on this
like it,
show.
yeah.
It's not going to go well. Did you? Was there anybody that's off the top of your head that should be on that list, or at least be in consideration for the list? Jose, should we put Jose on that list?
I think Jose Ramirez is on that list. I mean, again, I think if you're going to, you almost have to separate it out. You're talking about postseason clutch
Right.
performers,
Right.
or just guys in the clutch. Because
Yeah.
I've seen so many games, not as many postseason games have I covered, obviously, but
yeah.
there are games where you're looking at that. I'm looking at my lineup card, and I'm like, gosh, the lineup's going to turn over. We're going to have to see so and so again, And you think about the Tigers run. It's like you didn't want to see Miguel Cabrera late in the game.
No.
You did not want to see him up with a chance to do any kind of damage because he's a guy that will use the whole field. And those are the guys. That's why Derek Jeter was such a great, in my opinion, clutch performer. David Ortiz, maybe you could pitch to him at times, although he was on a different level there for a while. But home run guys have holes in their swings.
Yeah, that's true.
But Jeter could just, boom, hit one to right field, dump one
Right.
in, and you're screwed. You're down.
I remember as a kid, as a Cubs fan, the first time they made the playoffs was 1984, and they played the Padres. And I was like, every time Tony Gwynn came to the plate, like Jack Clark was on that Padre team, but you could pitch around him somewhat. They have power, but you couldn't pitch around Tony Gwynn.
Yeah.
You knew he was going to put the ball in play. You just had to hope you were going to be there to make the play.
And I'm a little bit older than you guys, and growing up in the '70s, the Big Red Machine.
Yeah.
Find a hitter in that lineup you wanted to face.
Yeah.
Right.
Tony Perez, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, on and on. There wasn't an easy out there.
Right.
And the Pirates with Willie Stargell and Dave Parker and Bill Madlock and Mike Easler. I mean, and the Phillies. Greg Lazinski, and then when Pete Rose went over there, I mean,
Yeah.
there
Mike
were some
Schmidt.
great teams. The
Yeah.
Baltimore Orioles had
Yeah.
great teams. And those guys were a different breed of hitter because it wasn't all about launch angle and trying to hit it out of the
I
park.
know.
And so those guys, you feared them because if you made a bad pitch, they were going to make you pay for it.
Yeah.
But you could make a good pitch, and they'd still find a way to get the bat on it and find a hole, and you end up losing the ball game.
Well,
I
Matt,
just gave a stat. Sorry, G, real quick. I gave a stat the other day. I saw that Rod Carew won the batting title 7 out of 10 years, and the 3 years he didn't win it, he had 360, 330, and 310 or something like that. Guys like him, you had George Brett, Wade Boggs, all these guys that were just hitting machines.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
No, well, I look at it like this. The Guardians of today, the team that would scare me, and I look at it, you're up a game on the Yankees, and it's like you watch these games, and the whole time you're like, can we get enough runs? Can we get enough runs? Can we get enough runs? And they get up, and they might be down 2 or 3 runs, or they might be not batting well the whole game, and then the 3-run homer comes around. Like, is that a tough thing to do? Is that I asked Jay and I asked Bull and Jason, I said, is it possible to win a World Series if you are a hit-to-contact team, you're going to play solid defense, and you're going to run the bases? Is that a way you can win a World Series with the way things are played today?
Certainly you can, but I think it makes it more difficult because, as we all know, when you get into the postseason, you're only facing the top 3 pitchers starting-wise. Mm-hmm. And then you got everybody coming out of that bullpen right behind him. So you're not going to feast on the 4 and 5 starters in the rotation. So you're not going to get as many hits. So it's tough to string together 4 and 5 hits in an inning to have a big rally, which is why you need to have that threat of the long ball. You need somebody in that lineup that can pop one and get you some instant offense. And look, are they a mashing team? No. But last year against Tampa Bay, game 1. I mean, it's a best of 3, right? It's you got to win. It's Shane Bieber gives up a run. It's 1-0. Jose comes back in the bottom. I think it was the 7th inning and homered to tie the game up. That was huge. One swing of the bat, bang, we're back to even, and then they end up winning the game. And then we had the epic 16-inning scoreless
man.
affair until Oscar walked it off. So you need to have that threat. And I think Oscar Gonzalez, Jose, adding Josh Bell to the middle of that lineup, that gives you legitimate fear as a pitcher. Like, okay, if I make a mistake here, that ball is going to be in the seats.
And if healthy, Zunino for a catcher has a lot of power.
Yeah.
Now, can he stay healthy for a whole season? We'll see. He's coming off a bad injury from last year. Have you been to spring training yet?
Yeah, I was down there
and
for a
you're
week
going
early.
back? Or?
Yeah.
So how does Zunino look so far? What's the early thoughts on him?
You know, good. I mean, he's healthy.
Yeah.
So he had the thoracic outlet syndrome surgery.
right,
so
right.
It's not so much a performance injury as it is, you know, it's something that you have to have done for circulation reasons.
Right.
And it's become, as gruesome as it sounds, it's become a fairly somewhat common procedure. So it's not like he had a muscle that was torn and had to be reattached. He should be fine. And you're right. You're talking about a couple of years ago. He's a 33 home run guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to hit for a high average, but he gives you threat, which again, for a pitcher, gives you, you know, you got to think about what you're going to do here. And I loved Austin Hedges and Luke Maley last year. Great defensive catchers, great guys, good people in the clubhouse. They kept everything light and loose. But man, they just you were like hoping for him to get a hit, and it just didn't happen. There just wasn't a lot of production from that position. Hopefully, Mike Zunino can give you, you know, some power and some thump every once in a while at the bottom part of the lineup.
What do you expect? Are we going back to baseball as we know it? You mentioned launch angle earlier. I just wonder, are we finally going back to baseball of 10 and 15 years ago with the rules changes?
I think the good news for me is that the Cleveland Guardians are already there.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like they were looking out over the horizon and say, hey, boys, I see the game is changing. Let's get there ahead of time. I don't think that is actually what happened.
Zach Meisel and I had that conversation last year probably, did they see this coming? And because they built this roster for contact.
Yeah.
Far more than most other teams. Like, it's almost like that's what they look for in hitters now.
You know, I think that's just a hitting coach a long time ago once told me, you can teach a guy that can hit to hit for power. But if you can't make contact, where am I going with this?
Right.
You know, Russell Brandon was a great example of a guy who could turn heads in batting practice. Did you see where that ball went? And even in the game, he could hit a ball as far as. And we did a game in Venezuela one spring training against the Astros. He hit a ball out of the stadium. Like, the people in the top row stood up and watched it go over their heads, and it went out of the damn stadium.
Yeah.
And I thought that's the longest home run I think at that time I had ever seen.
Right.
But Russell couldn't hit for contact. You know, he'd hit 216 and strike out 150 times, and those home runs would be majestic, but not enough of them to overcome that. And so if you can hit for average, you can teach a guy to, okay, now get the head out a little bit earlier and hit that pitch and hit it, pull it for a home run. Jim Thome was not a home run hitter. Jim Thome was an opposite field doubles machine.
Yeah.
And Charlie Emanuel opened his stance up and taught him how to get the ball out front and hit it for power, and he became a home run monster. So I think if you're scouting your people that are out there beating the bushes, you find guys that can hit for average and consistently put the ball in play, you know, with physical, you know, maturation, you're gonna get bigger. I mean, every year we come to camp, it's like, wow, that guy. It's just because he's a year older,
Right?
And he's on the nutrition program, and he's just, you know, he's eating better. I mean, when I was 20, I'd eat fast food every day if you'd have let me.
Yeah.
But they get these guys in the system, and they teach them this is what you need to eat every day, and keep the body fueled properly. So these guys are getting stronger, they're getting faster, they're getting better.
I think that they do the same thing with pitching, right? They like to draft and acquire pitchers who have good command,
Yeah.
and then they get their velocity
teach them
up. We've
velocity.
seen this
time and time again.
This will be the great novel down the road.
Yeah.
What was the formula? Because even internally, we have these discussions. Because, you know, when you have success, the poachers come along. I want to take this guy and make him my pitching coach. I want to take this guy and make him my pitching coordinator in the minor leagues. What are they doing in Cleveland? We'll take some of their guys.
Yeah.
But they continue to turn them out. So it's more than just one person having all the answers. They've got some kind of really good formula for getting these guys into the system. And where they also excel, not just drafting, but they acquire guys in trades that you're like, who's this guy? Who's Corey Kluber, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, just a 2-time Cy Young Award winner down the road. Once we figure out how to optimize his pitches, and they've just done a fantastic job. And that's what keeps you relevant as a smaller market team. You've got to have pitching. You have to develop it yourself.
How do you stop the slander in the grocery stores? I know when people see you, they say, Where's the money at, Matt?
Yeah.
What are they doing with the money? Do you have a list of notes that you give people? Have the Dolans giving you a bullet point presentation? This is what you need to hit here and here and get out the self-checkout line.
Look, I think we all, as fans, we want to spend the owner's money. It doesn't matter what sport, football, basketball, you name it. Go get this guy, go get that guy. We'll be a better team if we trade for this guy. It's just our nature as fans. We want the best players at every position. We want an all-star team. The reality is you've got a budget to work with, whether you're an owner or a general manager. That's not something we want to talk about as fans. I don't want to talk about budget. I want to talk about the best players. So what Chris and Mike and that front office have done a wonderful job of is taking, here's the budget. This is what we have to spend. How do we best allocate those funds to stay competitive? Because you guys were just talking about teams that tanked.
Right.
This organization has never said, well, we're just going to throw in the towel. They continue to stay relevant longer than any other franchise in the city. For 20 years, they've been a relevant team year in and year out. That's admirable. I love the job that they've done. I try to focus more on that when anybody comes with that, oh, they don't spend this, they don't spend that. It's like, well, it's not your money. When you have enough money to buy a team, you can spend it any way you want.
I hear you. I scream about the payroll too. It's frustrating. I get it. We all want, because they have such a great front office, we think, wow, if this team had $150 million payroll, how good could they be? But it is what it is. We can't control that situation. So what we can control is, okay, well, let's look at this team and what they need. Now, for the first time in a while, I feel like I'm thinking ahead to the trade deadline. I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to win the division. I'm thinking already about the playoffs, and I think they're going to need one more starting pitcher. I know that's crazy, but I'm thinking ahead. But it's good because for the last bunch of years, we've been like, who the hell's going to play left field? Who the hell's going to play right field? Right now, you feel like there's at least a decent starter at every spot. Now, maybe that changes. I am a little nervous, though, Matt, about the back of the rotation. For me, I don't trust Plesac, and I don't trust Savali. I like Quantrill, but I was hoping they'd get a veteran starter in the mix to face a Garrett Cole or somebody in the playoffs. I think, and I'm optimistic they have payroll flexibility to potentially trade for a pitcher at some point. Do you think, or are you comfortable with what they have right now in the starting rotation?
I'm comfortable with what they have based on what I saw a year ago. And in the hope that Plesac and Savali stay healthy and get out there and give you 30 starts. If they don't, then you have to look internally first, because that's the way they operate. And internally, they've got two pretty good-looking young studs down on the farm that they didn't bring to camp for the same reason they didn't bring Bieber to camp a few years ago. Because
are they going to be ready to join the team this year?
I think they could be.
Okay, then that's a different story.
They're kind of flying through the system. Gavin Williams is a name to remember.
Yes.
Tanner Bybee. Those are the two names that are kind of on the horizon.
Because Espino's been hurt.
Yeah, and Logan Allen is another guy. He's a left-hander. Not the Logan Allen from a
Logan
year ago.
Right.
But this is another kid that's very exciting. So they've got three guys that are sort of on the periphery that are not that far away. And look, that's like last year. You go into the season, nobody was talking about Oscar Gonzalez being on the big league team. And then he comes up in the middle of the season, you're like, where's this guy been, right?
They had left him for the Rule 5 draft.
Right in the offseason last year. And Will Brennan was another one. I mean, we saw him tearing up AAA, and we're like, where's he at? Why isn't he getting called up? And then he got called up in September, and now he's got a real good opportunity to be on this ball club. So, it goes back to what we were talking about. Their ability to draft, identify, develop. It's one thing, as you said, you could tank and get the number one pick in the draft. That doesn't mean anything in baseball.
It's a crapshoot.
You go back and look at the history of Major League Baseball draft. The first round is littered with guys you've never heard of that never made the majors. Yeah. Never made first-round picks.
I know. It's not like it's the hardest sport to project, especially when you're drafting high school kids.
Yeah.
Like, who the hell knows how these guys are going to develop? Yeah. Plus, they're playing with metal bats. It's a tough.
And mentally.
Yeah,
It's hard to crawl in somebody's head and try and figure out, is this kid. Right. I remember the story, Bartolo Colon. When they signed Bartolo Colon, now he wasn't part of the draft. He was in the Dominican. Yeah. They signed him, 16 years old. When they signed him, and I don't remember what the money was at the time. It's irrelevant. Whatever it was, $10,000, $20,000, it was more money than his family had ever seen.
Right.
The question the organization had internally was, because this guy has nothing, will a little bit be enough to satiate him, and will he want to continue to get better?
Right.
And wouldn't you know it, he pitched longer than anybody in the history of their organization.
Crazy.
You know, you
It's
just
amazing,
never
but
know.
You never know.
You don't.
You never know what's inside somebody. In terms of getting back to what we first started with the power, Matt, because I think for the Guardians, to me, the goal is, can you get to the middle of the pack? You know, they're not going to compete with the elite in terms of power. They just don't have that kind of roster. But I think they can get to the middle of the pack in power if certainly if Zunino stays healthy, if Josh Bell takes what I believe is still one more step in his game, and if Oscar Gonzalez moves forward. Like, you've been covering this game forever. We know in baseball more than any other sport, a guy could look awesome as a rookie, and then his second year he could suck. I think we all feel good about Stephen Kwan being still good because of the nature of his game.
Yeah.
But Gonzalez, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if he's got 20 home runs in June. It wouldn't surprise me if he's in the minors in June. I just think that's the nature of baseball. But if he can be a legit 30 home run guy, then they could really move into the middle of the pack in power. And with the ability to get on base, the speed, the defense, if they can be middle of the pack, they can play with anybody.
You know, I think if you think about baseball and maybe how it relates to other sports, maybe it's the one sport where each position impacts the other more than any other sport. Like, if you think of an offensive line in football, they all have to work in concert.
Yeah.
But, you know, having a great center, you know, isn't necessarily dependent on the two guards. Each guy's got his individual assignment. He does what he does. Certainly running backs, back in the old day when they had two back sets, they could complement each other. You could have a banger and you could have a speed guy getting outside. Baseball, each spot in the lineup is dependent on the guy in front of him and behind him. And I think, so what they're building here is Stephen Kwan in that leadoff spot, he took to it.
Yeah.
As soon as they put him in there and got Miles out of there, the offense really took off. And to your point, he's got great bat-to-ball skills. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know, Jose is the guy last year that what he did was incredible because for most of the year, he had no protection. I mean, Rick Manning and I, we marveled. We were like, can you believe nobody's intentionally walked him? And then all of a sudden, like
crazy.
come June 1st, it was like every other day they were put him on.
Yeah.
So now, with Josh Bell behind him, presumably, you're going to have to think twice about how you pitch to Jose. Ahmed Rosario, I love. He's one of my favorite guys. He reminds me. Remember Ronnie Lott with the 49ers?
Yep,
of course.
That's what I think of when I watch Ahmed Rosario run the bases. Those high knees, it looks like he's going to, if you got hit in the chin with one of his knees, he'd be out for a week. I love the way he just attacks the game. So your first three hitters, and then again, Josh Bell. A lot depends on how he handles the middle of that order. If he protects Jose might have a big year. And then, you know, Josh could have a big year because people are being careful with Jose, and then they make a mistake and Josh Bell pounds it. And then you got Josh Naylor sitting behind him and Oscar Gonzalez sitting behind him. And, you know, who knows how the rest of the lineup is going to shake out. But Mike Hargrove said it a long time ago. A four-hole hitter legitimizes your entire lineup. When you have that guy that sits in the middle, the guys in front of him are going to get better pitches to see, and the guys behind him, they get better because now the pitcher has nowhere to take a breath. You know, I finally got through the top four, and now I got Oscar Gonzalez, or now I got Josh Naylor. Whoever's behind him, there's not going to be as easy a break. Last year, you could probably say there were times where you got through the first six, you could kind of take a breath.
Oh, absolutely.
And get through for sure.
You mentioned Ahmed Rosario. What is his long-term appeal with the Guardians? Because we got all these middle infielders.
I know.
And the guy, you know, was a top prospect. He looks like he's found a home at shortstop.
And he's a great, as we're told, you would know better than us, great locker room
Absolutely.
guy.
So, you know, what does it look like?
He feels like, I don't know if they're going to do it, Matt, because they got all these young guys, but he feels like he should be in the price range that they could keep him.
Yeah.
Right? He's not getting $30 million a year because he's not a power hitter. So, I don't know. I mean, I feel like his contract's going to be somewhere in that Andrew Benintendi level, like $15 million a year, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Do you think it's too much?
I think right now, you know, where they're at with regards to Ahmed is, as you pointed out, Garrett, they got all these young guys that are piled up behind him. It's basic economics. You know, you're going to look at, it's like, well, if we pay Ahmed, we're going to have to unload these young guys because there's nowhere for them to go. And then is that going to impact our ability to keep Shane Bieber or somebody else that's going to come due? You know, where can we make the most impact for our buck is I think the way Chris and Mike have to, you know, look at building the roster long term, to your point. And that's where it's hard, for me and for a lot of people that cover the team, because look, we're human, and you get affinity for certain people. Like Ahmed Rosario, do I have long conversations about the moon and the stars with him? No. But I love the way he approaches the game. He's very low-key. Andre Knott, who's one of my best friends, he went down to the Dominican and spent some time with Ahmed. He told me, he goes, now we know why he's so quiet. He grew up with sisters. They talked all the time. And so Ahmed's just very quiet, very reserved, because that's just the way he grew up. It's not because he's, innately shy or doesn't trust people or anything like that. That's just his personality. And I love that about him, because he plays with that fire and that energy, but he doesn't have to talk. And he just sits there and watches Jose chirp, and he just gets a big kick out of it. And the two of them played together so well on the left side of the infield. I don't know, to answer your question, if he's a long-term fit. I'm sure they'd love to make it work. I don't know if that's going to happen, though.
While we're talking about middle infielders, Andres Jimenez, I was looking at the numbers. Yeah. I knew he had a good year.
He's a stud year.
If you look at WAR, and Bull and I have had this conversation, sometimes I think defense gets a little bit too much credit into the WAR stat. He was putting up WAR numbers that it took Robbie Alomar to age 31 to have the type of season he had. How good of a year did he have, and is there another step or two? Like I kept asking Zach Mize all year, why is Jimenez hitting seventh? Why is he hitting sixth and seventh? He's the best hitter in their lineup next to Jose.
Yeah.
What is his next progression?
He's one of those guys we were just talking. He came to camp, and I'm like, he just looks even stronger and not bigger. He didn't bulk up, but he just looks like there's no fat on this guy. I think he's a guy that. So we had 3 guys that stole 20 bases last year, and 2 guys who were close. I think we could easily have 30 stolen bases, guys.
Especially with the bigger bases,
bigger
the pitch
bases.
clock.
That's going to be a point of emphasis. We saw it right out of the gate. I've gone to spring training where I never saw a stolen base attempt in spring training. There were like 4 or 5 in the first game of the year. I'm like, shoot, what's going on? Like somebody shot a starter's gun on there. Jimenez can steal bases. Yeah. He takes the extra base. He turns a single into a double by being aggressive. He's also a guy that I think there's more power in there. I don't want to see him turn into a dead pull guy, but I think when pitchers make mistakes, they try to throw a breaking ball and it speeds up his bat. He's going to sting some people. I think that he's a guy that when he came over here, look, I can only imagine what it's like when they say, okay, go replace Frankie Lindor and good luck. And he was very young. He was 20, 21 years old. And I think that, not that it overwhelmed him, but that certainly was there. And last year he was more comfortable. And, playing second base, I think he took to that position. It showcased his athletic ability. I don't know that he still couldn't be a great shortstop, but I think he's got a chance to be a very special second baseman.
And when you said pull hitter, it reminded me, have you guys seen when Joey Gallo came up? He's on Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Did you see how they defended him? Did you see this, Jason?
No. The short?
They put the left fielder in short right field.
So they had no left fielder.
Yeah.
In a way, because if you look at his spray chart, he never hits the ball to left field. Almost never. Now, I don't think they're going to do this like they did. Like with Jose, they put the second baseman in short right field. They're not going to take the left fielder with Jose because he can hit the ball to left field. Joey Gallo can't at all. But Joey Gallo is actually going to get screwed by this new rule. A player like him, because now there's one more defender on the infield. And it's, but in general, it's. I mean, I like these new rules. I know for old school baseball guys, in which I always considered myself, it's a huge adjustment, all these rules. But I think they're going to make the game more exciting.
Think about the NFL, the NBA, and baseball.
Yeah.
Comparatively, baseball has moved at a glacial pace.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this the other day. 1972, the NFL decided to make what at the time was probably overlooked by a lot of people, a major change to the playing field. They moved the hash marks in. They moved them so that they were even with the goalposts up and down the field. They used to be way out on the side. So if you had the ball on the right hash, half your offense was running into the sideline. So they moved the hash marks in. The idea was it's going to open up the defense, and it will force teams to throw the ball. It will incentivize them to throw the ball more.
Yeah.
The unintended consequence was it ushered in the year of the runner. More guys rushed for 1,000 yards in 1972 than ever had before in the history of the NFL. And so I'm curious to see what the unintended consequences of these rule changes are.
Yes.
So to your point, Bull, you got 3 men on the right side of the infield. I'm a left-handed pull hitter. You're going to pitch me to hit into that pull. All right. People that complain like, why don't they just hit the ball the other way? Well, you're not throwing the pitch away.
Right.
Joey Votto says it best. He goes, we hit where the ball is pitched. If you pitch me away, sure, I'll hit it through the left side all day. But when you got 3 guys over here on the right side of the infield, you're pounding me in. You're throwing 95-mile-an-hour cutters in on my fist. The only thing I can do is try and pull it over there. Right. So now there's only 2 defenders over here, 2 defenders over there. The old-fashioned setup.
Right.
So as a pitcher, if I've got a left-handed pull hitter up there, am I going to pitch him in, knowing that there's 1 less defender over there?
Right. No.
Maybe not.
Right.
Maybe now I'm throwing him more pitches away. So what's the cat and mouse game? How does the hitter react to the way pitchers? Jose's used to seeing in, just pound it in. Right. Well, now if he's getting pitches away, does he make the adjustment and say, all right, I'm gonna start taking it the other way? Does his double count go up because he's going to backspin the ball to left? Or does he say, no, I'm going to hook it and go through that hole on the right side because I know there's more room over there? I'm anxious to see how that particular rule change impacts the game this year.
I'm curious. Neither Josh Bell nor Josh Naylor are very good defensively. Who do you think primarily will play first and who will primarily DH?
I think Josh Bell will be primarily the designated hitter.
Okay.
I think if Tito can get him out there defensively, it helps because the one thing that we had going for us last year as a ball club was that the DH was used to get more people involved on everyday basis.
Sure.
Guys didn't sit on the bench and wait for a week to play because he could move them around. If Josh Bell is just a DH, well, then that takes your ability to move people around. So I think with Tito in a perfect world, he'd like to have him out there a couple of days a week.
Well, we know Naylor's not going to play against lefties this year, right? I mean, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's going to strictly platoon him.
Yeah.
There definitely will be certain left-handers like, well, this is just a bad idea, so we'll give him the day off here. But, I think defensively, look, they've tried a lot of different things, and they're looking at a lot of different things. So the other problem that they have, it's a good problem to have, is they've got young guys that are kind of backed up like Gabriel Arias. Where does he fit? He can't play. He ain't playing short. He's not playing third. He's not playing second.
Yeah.
So they've got him a little bit first. Maybe try him in the outfield. Same thing with Tyler Freeman. You're trying to find ways to get these guys involved, and so
it's a good problem to have.
The great thing about Terry Francona as a manager and his staff, and I don't want to leave them out because Mike Sarbaugh figures into this heavily, they work with guys. So if you're not naturally a first baseman, but we want to see if you play there, they're going to work with him. They're going to get you to the point so if they put him out there, it's not going to be an embarrassment to himself or to the team. So he's great at making sure if you're on the team, you play. You don't sit for a week and just, let your skills diminish.
Matt, great stuff. Have fun down in Arizona. We all can't wait for the season.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. It was great.
Matt Underwood.